So this week, I thought we'd talk about competitors copying us. I remember as a younger guy, I used to get quite emotional. And I was like, what? Those rotten scoundrels, look at what they're doing. Can you believe that? And I think there's probably something that you may have as a normal reaction to when somebody who's one of your competitors starts to do things that you do. There's a few things we're going to talk about. One includes the different ways that competitors can copy us. We're going to talk about the mindset. How do we actually mentally handle that and emotionally handle that situation? And we're going to have a look at some examples so that you appreciate the different areas that it can come with. And then we'll finish off with the dilemma of what happens when it actually gets to the stage that they're stealing some of your customers by copying what you're doing. All right, so I work in the commercial real estate industry, and look, there's sometimes I feel like every corner has a real estate agent. Admittedly, most of them are residential, but quite often they'll flip into the commercial side, especially when they're quiet. And recently we've had a lot of activity in my territory, so much so that some of the capital city guys have come in their flash sports cars, their Armani suits and their loafers and their R.M. Williams shoes and their moleskin pants. Oh, you just see them coming a mile away. And I love it when they come into regional Queensland and their sports cars go because every time they hit a gutter or something that's not quite, super city slick for them. But yeah, that's just my sarcasm and way of handling things. But I found over time that there's different things that competitors do, especially if you are the type of business owner that is innovative and likes to try different things. Not everything works. I mean, it's great when they copy things that don't work and you say, well, I know what you're coming in for. But usually it's they're smart enough to know that, that seems to be working. What are they doing? How do we actually copy that and do the same? It's almost like a bit of eating humble pie, isn't it? When you say, I'm going to have to start doing what Peter's doing because obviously it's working and he's getting more market share than what we are. So let's recognise sometimes that industries do things in a certain way because they have worked out that it's the most efficient way of doing it. Like most builders build houses the same way. Most concreters make concrete the same way. Most bakers produce bread the same way. It's a fact of life. There are some things that are just effective particularly in mass production. That's why the franchise model works. Every McDonald's is the same because they've worked out that this way works. And accordingly, if you're going to get people copying them, like a Hungry Jack's or there's Burger Urge or others, they may put tweaks in place, but you'll find that they'll use a lot of the franchising model that works in there. So it's just natural in business to copy processes. So processes is mainly what we're talking about here. And sometimes the marketing and design is copied as well. But at the end of the day, even those are still processes. So what I found over time is my competitors seem to copy a lot of my processes because I'm pretty strong in that sort of area as a skill set. I used to have the terminology, we used to call it research and development, R&D. Well, where I came from, R&D actually stands for rob and duplicate. So what that essentially means is if we find something that worked really well, we duplicate it. Now, the interesting thing to notice is when I do my own rob and duplicating, it's very rare that it's from the field of my industry. I will have a look at, for argument's sake, I've just brought on some new software that was new to me anyway, called Substack. And that's because I was having a challenge. I was getting emails from Telstra, Big Pond and Google saying that my mailing list is getting too big and they really would appreciate it if I went to a more upmarket mailhouse software. So I've actually gone out and robbed and duplicate. We used a Substack because it was what is used by a company that I looked at that does community newspapers. So they had similar sort of regional spread that we had, and they have the feel of the newspaper of their bulletins is what I would like to have in mine as well. So there's a lot of things that I looked at and I thought, I like this. And I actually worked with them to get Substack. So that's a little bit different in rob and duplicate. But I was outside the industry. I love it. And we're seeing it out. Our first issue goes out tonight on the new software, so we'll see how that goes. And hopefully Google and Big Pond will not be too upset with the amount of people on my mailing list. What can I say after the number of years I've been in play? I've got a lot of people on my mailing list who subscribe to get the bulletins, to get the idea. If you want to get a copy of it, look, drop me a line in the comments. There's another reason for you to put a comment in there. Let me know, and I will put you on the list and you can get a copy of what's going on. So R&D is an area. Now, if we looked at the mindset, like, I'm a typical alpha male. I'm sorry. I'm achievement focused. I'm power based. I'd like to be the only bull in the paddock. That's right. I admit that, and quite often most people in businesses have those sort of attributes to some extent. It's not a environment where having a business is good for meek lambs. It's a bit of a challenge. You get chewed out and turned into mincemeat. So when I look at what my competitors are doing, the mature approach now, that doesn't always work. Sometimes they still get under my skin. I virtually say to myself, well, if they're copying me, that means they are behind me. And I'd rather have my competitors behind me than in front of me. If they're copying me, that means I'm doing something better than they are, and they're not happy with the results that they're getting. So they're admitting that what I'm doing is working, which to me is great encouragement. I always love customer feedback, and sometimes the feedback you get from competitors is every bit as good. So don't be too upset if your competitors are following you and copying you. The other thing is I've got competitors all the time copying me, but they are so far behind because while they're working in, like for argument's sake, I've got local competitors copying things I'm doing locally. They have no concept and no understanding that I'm actually now going international. So not only have I gone from local, I've gone to regional, and then I've gone to national. I'm now going into international. So do I worry that they're challenging me and trying to copy some of the things I'm doing locally? Nah, I just sit here. So you guys are on another planet, and while you're on that planet out there in Pluto, if that's still classed as a planet this week, then that's fine because I'm closer to the sun where it's warm and everything's doing good. So don't freak out too much if they're copying you, because it's like runners, or like any sports. If someone's copying you, it's an acknowledgement that you're ahead of them, and let them chase. That's great. If nothing else, when you start to hear the footsteps of your competitors behind you, okay, it's time to change gears and keep going. But I'd rather that than see them off in the distance ahead of me. So try not to phase too much out of it. All right, let's have a think about a couple of examples. So in my industry, we have various ways of selling commercial property. And one of them is what's called an expression of interest. An expression of interest is different to the normal approach. Normally we put an ad out, so here's my asset, be it a business, be it a commercial property, it has these features and it's this price. There are times when I will use what's called an expression of interest, which virtually says, here's the asset, here's the components of it, but we're not going to give you a price. We want you to work out a price that works for you and come back to us. It's a little bit different, but it has particular applications. Now, I've done probably 3 expressions of interest in the last 8 months, which is more than I normally do. Normally, I just don't do them at all. But the situations were very unique in this instance, because in each of those instances, the situation was that the business was very complex. So everybody would look at that business and see different elements. Quite often these businesses have multiple revenue streams. And, for one person, one of my clients is in the port. So they had a transport division, they had a bulk storage division, they had a mechanical division, they had a container storage division. So in that instance, we put an expression of interest out because for different buyers, the assets had different weightings. A trucking industry would be more interested in the trucking and storage side than they would be in the container side. So they wouldn't value that much for the containers, but they would put a big value on the trucks and the haulage. We had other clients who are shipping industries, so they were really interested in the bulk storage, the massive what you call a hard stand area. So they'd put the goods in and it would sit there for a week till the ships come in, and then they'd ship them out. So that was a prime asset for somebody who was in that industry. Whereas, once again, someone who's looking for container space, well, wow, the container space is the big asset for them. Everyone had a different price. So that's why I did an expression of interest. And guess what? We sold some of these properties. Actually, we sold all the ones that I had expression of interest. And the result is, suddenly I start seeing expression of interest popping up everywhere. Now, what you will find when competitors copy you is they generally get pretty lazy, because what it means is they're not going to create their own process. They want to create yours. And I look at the expression of interest or the EOIs that they send out, and they're flawed. There's key elements missing. There's key processes missing. And guess what? It's not working for them. It's just a marketing glitch, and the result isn't there. So now they're starting to say, well, I don't really understand why EOI works for Peter but doesn't work for me. So I don't mind. So let them copy it, because if you've got a process, quite often all a competitor wants to do is be rob and duplicate, quick and gain. But if it isn't done correctly, then it's not going to work for them. Other areas I've had clients who have gone to a competitor, and we'll talk about that later. And I've seen the competitors, so I pull down all my ads, and next thing out, up pops their ads, which is fine, which you expect. Same photos as my photos. And even the text is the same. All the wording is exactly the same. All they really did a rob and duplicate. They copy and pasted my content and put it onto their ads. So once again, I sit and laugh. I said, well, everybody who's already seen those businesses and inquired about them, they're not going to come back again. So what is happening? They're not moving those products, And the other thing is, when the client rings the competitor of mine, they're saying, what's happening this week? How many inquiries you had? Oh, maybe 1 or 2. Well, what's wrong with you? Peter was getting 5 and 10 a week, And suddenly the client's thinking, maybe it wasn't the agent that was the error, or they're suddenly thinking, what I was told by the competitor, how wonderful life is and how good they are and how great they can make this happen, just isn't happening. Once again, if they rob and duplicate for you, don't be too upset, because quite often it doesn't apply to their environment. And I have to admit, there are times, and it's not actually my competitors, but one of the things that annoys me, and tell me if it's the same with you, is on YouTube, I will put up a topic, and it gets good traction, and suddenly I see one of my competitors down south in another state, put up the same sort of topic. And this is a common practice in YouTube, and it's one of the things that the coaches of YouTube, for want of a better word, just really drum into their students and the people who pay them money to show them how to get a monetized channel in 30 days. It's very much find the niche that you want to work in and then just copy the leader in there. I find that a bit disheartening, because probably the thing that really gets disheartening is the second and third and fourth people who all copy it, they all still get a fair bit of traction. Sometimes there's probably no justice in the immediate vicinity, but you'll find that if you produce quality content, that the people who are interested in that are going to subscribe and stay with you, because all they're going to see from the other channels is stuff that they've already seen. So once again, it's a mindset thing, but if they're copying my content, that's fine, because I've got a whole heap of content backed up and running through, so they can keep doing that. Hopefully people will work out to it. All right, so if it turns bad, if someone does a situation of one of your competitors copies you and it results in you losing clients, what's the mindset you have there? Well, I have a term called refugees. And that is, I have quite a few clients that come to me because they've been with a competitor and they've not been happy. And likewise, I've had a few, not as many as I get coming in, a few that have left me usually because they're in a time poor situation. They may need to sell quickly, or it's a business that is flawed. Now, I don't have a problem with selling businesses that are flawed. Not every business is star-studded diamonds. Can you believe that? Not anything that's listed is wonderful. But my philosophy as a professional is I let the buyers know what the flaws are, so that when I do get a contract, that contract sticks. They're not going to go through due diligence and find issues and skeletons in the cupboard that will cause that contract to fall over. And sometimes I've got clients who find that a little bit hard, or like I said, that they need to sell it quickly and it's just not going to happen. It's not that type of business. And as I tell people, nothing moves fast in commercial. So what happens is sometimes clients will go over to other competitors, and I'll get some that are dissatisfied from over there and they come here. And I always think twice about a customer who's come from a competitor. I won't take them on unless I'm pretty certain I can do something different. I'm not into robbing and duplicating and copying the photos and the text in the ads like my competitor does. But quite often I'll find that, okay, it's a market I'm better at than my competitor. It might be an industry that I've had a lot more success in. It may be that I advertise in different channels. It could be any number of reasons. It could be that I'm looking at the way that they've tried to move the business is maybe not suitable to the buyers that they're looking for, or there's a whole different segment. As long as I've got at least two reasons to let them come aboard, I'll actually sort of say, look, if they can't do it, then I probably can't do much other. The clients that I find that are stolen by my competitor, I've found are probably not premium clients. I mean, I love all my clients. It's just that some of them I love more than others. So the ones I have lost are usually very small ticket items, and they've got issues and challenges with the business, or they may be someone who's just not comfortable with the way and the professionalism that I used in the marketplace. Because, like I say, birds of a feather flock together. My buyers tend to be coming to me because of my brand name and the integrity I have. And sometimes sellers have challenges with that because, they may want it quickly, or they don't want to be priced accordingly, or they have flaws in their a product. It's interesting that in Queensland right now, they've just sadly had to bring in legislation in the real estate industry saying we have to declare valid things. Now, I've been declaring valid things for years. For argument's sake, if it's in a flood zone, if it's an area that's been flooded before, I have seen so many local agents, now that it's been a long time since we've had a flood, thankfully, and hopefully be a long time before we get another one, so many agents don't declare that it's a flood zone. Well, hello, wake up, Charlie, because as soon as it gets to the solicitor, the first thing they do is check the council records and check the mapping. And then they come back to the client and say, you realise this is a flood zone? The client says, what? I didn't know about that. Whoa. Contract cancelled. So don't be too upset if your competitors are copying you, because it means A, they're behind you, and B, like they say, imitation is the best form of flattery. So they think you're doing a good job. And it means that you've got processes in place that are ahead of your competitors, which means you're probably going to get a market share. They're not copying you because you're not damaging their market share. They're copying you because they know it's working and it's obviously making a feel on it. And recognize it's normal. Franchises are basically just a copying of other businesses. In sport, quite often you'll see one athlete will have a new technique, or a team will have a new way of breaking the defense of another team, and suddenly there's a lot of teams doing the same thing. Just natural on it. It can be anything, but it's process driven. And it may impact you to the stage of losing a few clients, but don't worry, because 90% of the time, they're probably the clients that you would want to cut anyway. And when you do that, you've got room for better ones. All right, so that's my thinking on customers copying me. Usually I'm pretty relative, but yeah, sometimes I still go, oh, those rotten buggers. But, keep it all in challenge. All right, take care and God bless. This is Peter from Bundaberg Commercial.